Okay, so let's start. Do you see my Excel sheet, يا شباب?
Yes, we see it.
Okay, very good. So today we are going to start a new chapter. It's called Enhanced ER. Sorry. The ER that we have يعني still lacks many things, and today we'll discuss يعني especially something which like object-oriented things يعني. So today what I am going to do is I'm going to show you entities and sub-entities and so on يعني. But let me start with an example. Let's assume this is the employee table. Assume this is the employee table. And let me just put some data. Then I will put here SSN of the first person, his first name, his last name, his date of birth, and his salary. Okay? Just a minute. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, so the first person's SSN will be here. Let's put يعني some values. Let me put SSN is 111. Oh, sorry. SSN is 111, and first name is, let's say his name is Ali, let's say, and his last name is, let's say, sorry عشان يكون date of birth مثلا I will put the date of birth here. His salary مثلا نقول whatever salary it is. Now I have three kinds of employees. I have technicians. So I care about their technician grade. Technicians عندهم grade برضو. Okay, grade A, grade B, grade C, and so on. I think. I also have engineers. Some employees are engineers, some employees are technicians, and some employees are secretaries. So for the secretaries, I care about their what? I care about the typing speed. I don't care about the engineer type speed or the technician type speed. What about for the technicians? I care about their grade. Okay, what about the engineer? I care about the engineer type. Is he electrical engineer? Is he software engineer? Is he COE? And so on. يعني. So for example, let's assume the first person here, Mr. Ali, he is a software engineer. So what do I do here? What do I put here, يا شباب?
Null.
Null, very good. Engineering type, let me say he's a software engineer. Let me just put SWE, okay? Typing speed, I don't really care about it. He's an engineer, and his job is engineer, not a secretary. يعني. Let's put another person who is a secretary, مثلا 222. Let's say his name is Sami, and his last name is something, his date of birth is something, his salary is something. His technician grade, no, he's not a technician, he's a secretary. Engineering type, no, he's not an engineer, he doesn't have any type. His typing speed, let's say per minute he types 50, what they call something. يعني. What do you think about this ER diagram, يا شباب? About this?
Many nulls.
Many nulls, very good. In fact, with each person, I'm going to have what? I'm going to have two nulls. يعني. So in each row, two nulls, which is a very bad design. So what do?
We can make an entity of this.
Okay. Very good.
Grade and the
Exactly.
type.
So in the logical design we can play, but what about in the conceptual design? So what we do is now I will show you something that you can do in the conceptual design. But before I do that, let's assume that if you are an engineer, you are not going to be a technician or you are not going to be a secretary. So you can. So they are disjoint. يعني. Either you are an engineer or you are a technician or you are what? Secretary. You cannot have 2 or 3 professions at the same time. مش مسموح يعني. So how do we do it in ER diagram? In ER diagram, we don't really care about what kind of employee you are. We just say you are employee وخلاص. Are you with me, شباب? But we don't really know what kind of employees we have. يعني. We can have so many different kind of employees. We have engineers. In this case, we have 3 types of employees. يعني. So can we do something in the ER diagram that can show us what kind of employees I have? No, you cannot do that one. It's going to be difficult to do. But with EER, which is today's topic, which is enhanced ER, so we are going to enhance the ER to include such information. Yani. Let me show you a slide of how I can show you this one. Let's just take the following. Let's say this is your employee table. This is EER, shabab. EER diagram, enhanced ER. EER stands for enhanced ER. So from now onwards, if you are going to use, for example, enhanced ER from just simple ER, What you have to do is, let's say this is the employee table. I have the name, which is first name, middle initials, last name, which you already knew this one from ER, SSN, birth date, address, and the job type. Now the job type is going to be either engineer or technician or what? Or secretary. Very good. So what we have to add is now, this is a new thing that we have never done in ER. This is EER, Shabab. So what we do is the following. We are going to put the secretaries here, the technicians here. So I'm going to create a sub-entity. So this, we call this one like a super entity, and these are the sub-entities. Secretary is a sub-entity of employee, which means any secretary is also employee. Technician is a sub-entity of employee, and the engineer is also a sub-entity of employee. Now the engineers, what do I care about them? The type and speed. These technicians I care about their technician grade, T grade, and for the engineers I care about their engineering type. So what I'm going to do, you can think of like the following, Shabab. These columns which are here, they are common to all of them, yani. So there's something which is common between all the employees, you put them in the super entity. So the super entity attributes are common attributes between the sub-entities, yani. So any secretary has a name, has SSN, has birthday, has address, has job type. Any technician, the same thing. He has a name, SSN, birthday. So whatever attributes that you see here, so all these attributes which are in the super what they call entity also belongs to this guy, belongs to this guy, and belongs to this guy. Now we call this one sub entities or sub classes, whatever you like, and you can call this one entity or a class. Yani. This is just the object-oriented language. Yani. Now what about this? What does it mean? This stands for disjoint. Disjoint معناته ايش؟ معناته ايش؟ If you are a secretary, you cannot be a technician. And if you are a technician, you cannot be an engineer. You have to be only one of these three. You cannot have two professions. So we call this one disjoint. What about if I can be a secretary and a technician at the same time? Can I be? Well, in small companies, sometimes they will use you for everything. So in that case, we don't have to write D, we have to write O. O stands for overlapping. So O stands for overlap. معناته ايش? A person can be secretary, can also be technician. D stands for disjoint. معناته if you are secretary, you cannot be technician, you cannot be engineer. You have to be only one at a time. Any question here before I go for example of overlapping? Any question here?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes.
What if we made an entity called employee type or job type?
You can't do that one. When you come to the logical design, you can't do that one. Okay.
And then in the conceptual.
Yeah, you can also do that one. There are different ways to do it, but I think this is the best way. This is the easiest way, yani. Okay. This is the easiest way, but you are right. You can go around. I can create a table called secretary. I can create a table called technician, isn't it? So I'll put the secretary. I will not create a table called employee, okay? Okay. Okay. Yeah, there are different ways to do it, but at the ER way, I think is one of the best ways, yani. But you are right, yani. I agree with you. There are different ways. There are around ways. You can do that, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Okay, so don't think about the logical diagram now. How am I going to convert this from this conceptual diagram into a logical diagram? We will do that one later on. But let me explain what do I mean by overlap. Sometimes this can be O. Okay, I think I have another diagram. Let me show you. They are all D. Yeah, I thought I have something which is with nothing inside it. It is in the book probably. Yeah, this one. This one is O now. See, this is what this is. Overlap. Parts, they can be manufactured parts. They can be also purchased parts. But some parts are both. They can be manufactured at the same. They can be what? Purchased. So O means overlap. If you overlap between the professions. For example, let's make this one overlap. Tell me if I need to do this one overlap, what do I have to do here, Shabab? Let's say a person, suppose Ali is what? He is an engineer, at the same time he's a technician. So what I will do is I will not leave this one blank, null. I mean, I have to put a grade for him. Let's say grade A, for example. You got my point, Shabab? So this is what we call what? Overlap. Did you get the difference between overlap and disjoint? Is that clear?
Yes, it's clear,
Okay.
I think.
That's very good. There is one more thing. Do you see this one double line? Okay, let me explain what does it mean, but it's better to explain it here. Let me explain it here. This can be double line or it can be single line. Do you understand? What it means if this is double line معناته ايش؟ Every employee has to be one of these three. For example, sometimes it's so if this is double line, but if it is single line معناته there are some employees here which are not here or here or here. For example, I can have medical doctors. Medical doctors, they don't have a class by themselves. Okay, why? For whatever reason, I'll tell you later on, inshallah. So it means there are some employees which are not what? Which are not here or here or here. For example, let's assume that I have 100 employees all together. Maybe 30, suppose this is disjoint. Suppose this one, I have 30 secretaries, I have 30 technicians, and I have 30 engineers. Are you with me, Shabab? Kida? So there are 10 employees which have a different profession. They don't fit into these categories. Okay? That's why you make this one يعني single line. Single line simply means there are some people which are here, they are not here at all. يعني. So when you have this kind of information, then if you want to show it using ER, don't put in a double line. Double line means everyone is here and here. Is this clear for you, Shabab? The difference between a double line and a single line?
Yes.
Okay. Now, just to test your understanding, let me give you this question. Assume this is single line. And let's say I have 30 people here, 30 people here, and 30 people here. What is the minimum number of employees here, Shabab? Minimum number of employees here. And what is the maximum number of employees here? Minimum and maximum, give me.
Minimum is 90.
Minimum 90.
Minimum is 90, excellent. So here, at least I should have 90 people because this is disjoint, isn't it? So the 30 which are here are different from the 30 which are here, also are different from the 30 which are here. So I have minimum 90 employees. What about maximum? We don't know, صحيح?
I think it's unknown.
Unknown. So simply just write greater or equals to what? 90, صحيح? Okay. That's right. Yani. What about if it was double line? So double line. And I have 30 here. I have 30 here. And I have 30 here. What is the minimum number of employees here and what is the maximum number of employees here? Tell me.
All 90.
90.
Minimum and
Exactly. Minimum 90, maximum 90. Very good. Minimum 90, maximum 90. Is this clear, Shabab, or not clear?
It's clear.
It's very clear. Fantastic. Let me give you another question. What about this is single line or this is double line? It doesn't matter. This is double line, but this is O. Not D. It is O. This is O. What is the minimum and what is the maximum?
I think we cannot say.
Minimum
the maximum is 90. The minimum we can't say.
What about, can I say minimum is 30?
Yes,
At
you can.
least,
Yes,
I
you
think,
could
yeah,
say
you
minimum.
can.
Yes.
at least 30 صحيح؟
Yes.
Yes, at
maybe
least at maximum.
الشركة صغيرة مش شركة صغيرة at using the secretary عشان يكون technician عشان يكون engineer يعني so they can be complete overlap صحيح؟
Yes.
But I don't think I can have less than 30 definitely. So minimum is 30. What about maximum?
90.
90. It cannot be more than 90. Okay. What about if this was not double line? It was single line. Overlap. What is minimum? What is maximum?
Minimum is 30. Maximum
Minimum
is
is-
unknown.
Maximum is unknown. صحيح? So I can have maximum. It can also be greater or equals to what? Equals to 30, isn't it? Yes, any number greater than 30 could be the maximum. We don't know who he is, يعني صحيح بالضبط. But it cannot be less than 30 definitely. But any number greater or equal to 30 could be a maximum. يعني. Did you get this point, Shabab? Is this clear for you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so when you are going to design an EER, what you can do is you can start with the secretary. You can put these employees separately, and then you can create what for them? A superclass for them. So when we do this one, when we go from bottom up, we call this one generalization. Okay? So when you are going to draw an ER diagram, you can do it by generalization. So this we call it generalization. Or you can start from the employee and then you can go what? You can break it down into what? Into its subcomponents. When we do this one, we call it specialization. Okay? So some people like to do generalization, some people like to do specialization, some people like to mix, yani, okay? So you can choose whatever you want. But let me tell you, if I'm going to create a subclass of a superclass, I must have a reason. I must have one of two reasons. The first reason is the subclass has its own entity. That's why I am making it a subclass. For example, secretary has its own entity type in speed, which has nothing to do with the technician, which has nothing to do with the engineer. So that's why I created a subclass. This also I made it a subclass because simply the T grade is particularly for technicians, nothing to do with the other employees. Also, I made this one a subclass engineer because this engineering type is only for engineers. So if you have a specific attribute which belongs to a sub-entity, then make a sub-entity. Otherwise, don't make a sub-entity. For example, here, I can have many employees, but I just create sub-entities only for these three types of employees, simply because they have what they need an extra attribute for themselves. Okay, that's why you have done it in object-oriented. When I create a subclass of a class, what do? The reason is because I have to add some more variable to it, instance variable. Isn't it, Shabab? In object-oriented, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
The same thing here,
Yes.
exactly. But if I am going just to create a class, a subclass here or sub-entity here, and it doesn't have any attribute, don't put it here, leave it here, خلاص, موجودة already here. For the employee, no need, because this is going to be its own. These are common attributes. So if you don't have an extra attribute, why do I have to put it as a class, as a subclass? Sorry, no need to put it as a subclass. Any question here, Shabab?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, please. What's the question?
How about, Doctor, if you remember the lab we had the hotel example and
Exactly.
housing example.
Yes.
We had something like room type or student type or
exactly.
all these. Can we break these down into
Definitely.
classes?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that makes more sense and makes the ER easier.
Easier, exactly. I agree with you. حتى بالproject حقتكم, okay, which I'm going to discuss إن شاء الله your project logical design حنتكلم عنه بعد الامتحان حقتكم. Even in your project, what do you have? I forgot what was the project about the clubs, صحيح?
Yes.
Yes.
You might find an entity. Maybe you need to break it into into sub entities, So you're right. Any ER diagram, you will find an entity which is creating which has attribute which doesn't belong to every employee, just some employees. So you just break them, Okay. Let me show you another example. I think this example is clear, Sahih. Any question here? So this is overlap, and this is total participation. This is total participation, double line, معناتها total participation, which we already took in ER diagram. So معناتها a manufacturer part also can be a purchaser part. That's what it means. But let me take it to something different a little bit. This one. What makes this one different, Shabab?
There's a sub collection or
exactly.
NCI
In fact, it is a sub. You are right. At the same time, it has three parents, direct parents. Let me explain for you what I mean here. Let's say I have an employee. So here I have divided the employees into secretaries, technicians, and engineers. Again, I want the managers to be separable. So I took the manager and I made them لحالهم يعني managers. I'm sure they have some attributes here, but I'm not showing you. Everybody has an attribute. Otherwise, I will not separate. For example, maybe I have something called manager start date and manager end date and so on. فهمت علي? So that's why some employees are managers and put them in a separate subclass كمان لحالهم يعني. Now the employees are also divided into hourly employees and salaried employees. So I need to make another disjoint. So it means maybe I have 100 employees. Okay, in this case, maybe I have, let's say, 10 secretaries, maybe 40 technicians, okay, maybe 30 engineers. And this is disjoint, so there is no overlap. So I have 80 employees, which are secretaries, technicians, and engineers. Now here it is 100, so I might have, let's say, 90 are salaried employees, and 10 are what? Hourly employees. And I like to separate them كده, لأنه the hourly employees, they have attributes لحالهم, and the salaried employees, they have also attributes لحالهم. Are you with me, Shabab? I get my point up to this point, right? So there are attributes here. Let's say I have maybe 6 or 7 managers. I will put them separately, like this one. These are managers. Now, what about this one? These are engineering managers. Let's assume I have 6 people here. So tell me, how many do you think the maximum number I can have here?
6.
Very good, 6. Why here? All the managers are 6. Maybe all the managers are 6, but I have 30 engineers here. So if you look at this, these are 30 possibilities. I have only 6 possibilities this way, and I have 90 possibilities this way. And so the minimum number is how much? The minimum number is 6. Maybe all the engineers, they are all what? They are all the managers. Sorry, maybe all the managers are engineers, and in this case 6. So I'm assuming that all the managers are engineers. So the maximum number of manager engineers is 6. Am I making sense to you, Shabab, or not?
Yes.
But why did I separate them? I separate them for a reason, because this will have an extra attribute, and so more specialization. So all of them, they have attributes, but more rate, they have attributes. That's why we separate them. Otherwise, why should we separate them? We have also attributes here. We have also attributes here. For example, here I can have an attribute, how much is per hour? Okay. So it means we have to take the salary out of this. We don't have to put salary here anymore, khalas. Remove the salary from here, because now I have hourly employees and salaried employees. So I'm going to put the salary here, okay? So don't forget, the people which are here are also here, okay? So you can do that, Any question here?
Doctor, why
Yes,
6?
please. Why 6? A good question. Let's say I have how many engineers, Andy?
30.
30, very good. How many managers do I have altogether?
36.
No, managers. 6. You said 6? You said 6 or 36?
36.
No, managers are here. So these are all the managers. They are how many? They are
6.
6 only.
Yeah.
Now I have manager, engineer. So you have to be at the same time a manager, at the same time have to be an engineer. So how many of them are manager engineers? Maximum, how many could they be?
6.
6, you are right. Because all the managers are 6. So I cannot put 30 here, because not all engineer is a manager. Only 6 of them, I only have 6 managers in the company.
The maximum.
So the possibility are the engineering managers, those managers who are engineers, maximum they can be 6. Maximum. But they can be 0 also. Okay? Minimum they can be 0. Maximum they can be how much? 6 of them.
6.
All of them are managers. It's clear, inshallah, is it?
Yeah, it's clear. Thank you.
Excellent. Now let me ask you a question. Can a manager be an hourly employee?
Yes.
According to this diagram, yes.
Are you sure? We don't know, Sahih?
No,
We don't know,
yeah.
so he can be
Yeah.
an hour.
We don't know because these are only the engineer manager. Maybe out of the 6, maybe 3 are engineering managers. But I can have other kind of managers which are hourly managers, but it doesn't tell me here. Yani, but I know that the salaried employees, the managers, out of this 1, 2, 3, together I'm getting an engineer at the same time a manager. So the person who is here has to be engineer, has to be manager, has to be salaried employee. Are you with me, Shabab?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, don't worry. How are we going to convert this one into tables? In fact, this will be a table. 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 And this will be a table. And this also will be a table. Okay, Shabab? So this table will contain all the common attributes. This table will contain the employee ID and how many he gets. I don't know how much, whatever attribute they have. This will have only 2 attributes, which is the secretary. So his SSN, whatever it is. So SSN will be in all of them. So I will have SSN here, SSN here, SSN here, SSN here, SSN here, SSN here, and SSN here, and SSN here, of course. But the first name and last name, they will all be here. They will not be here. Then SSN, the typing speed. So I will have here SSN and typing speed. Here I will have SSN and the technician grade. Here I will have SSN and the engineer type. Here I will have SSN and the start date of the manager, for example. Here I will have here SSN and hourly employee. So don't worry. We will talk about how do we convert this one into what? Into a logical design. I'm going to spend next class on some time on it. Any question up to this point, Shabab? Any question? Okay, so let me take you through now the slides one by one. Let's go through. Yes, please. You have a question?
Yes. Are the attributes inherited?
Oh, definitely. So if you are a sub entity, you inherit all the super entity attributes. So in fact, let me answer your question. How many attributes in the secretary? It has 1.
And all the employee attributes.
And all the employee attributes, exactly. But when we create a table later on, how do we create a table? We are going to make this one a table. There are 4 ways to do it, but let me show you one of the ways. When I'm going to create a table, what I will do is I'm not going to have these ones here. I'm going to remove from here. I will only put in the employee table the common ones.
All right.
Now I'm going to create another attribute, سميها secretary. أو سميها engineer مثلا. It's remember? Because you are engineers, okay?
Yes.
So, so what I will do is here, I will put the SSN of the engineer and his type. So I will say, for example, engineer, let's say 111, SSN, he is, for example, he is software engineer. 222, maybe he is electrical engineer, and so on. Okay, Shabab? So that's how we will do it, inshallah. So here you will put, if you have 30 engineers, you will have 30 rows here. Now you have to create another table for the secretary, and then put SSN and the typing speed, and then put all the 30 or 40 secretaries in there. The same thing also for the technicians. The same thing also for the managers. The same thing for the hourly. So all of them, they will have SSN and the whatever extra attribute in them. So you will create so many tables, yani. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any question also, Shabab? Any question? Okay, so let me just go through the slides just to explain for you some of the terminologies that I didn't do. If I go from here now, so specialization, so subclasses and superclasses, also some sub-entities and super entities. In fact, I like sub-entity and super entity. So we have to model, then I'll talk about specialization and generalization. Specialization simply means you start from the top, from the super, you go to the subclass. How do some more specialization? And if you do the opposite, we call it generalization. Yani. Some people, when they design the ER diagram, they start from the small ones and they, at the end, they make a big one. Or they start some of them from the big one, from the superclass, and they give you the subclass. Yani. Then I'll talk about inheritance. I think this was mentioned by one of you, Shabab. So I'll talk about which attributes are inherited by the subclass and so on. Yani. So I'll talk about that one. Now I'll talk about also the predicate and the user-defined subclasses, which is not that important, but I'll talk. I think I'll talk about the disjointed and overlapping. These are constraints, so we call them disjoint constraint. Even though we call it disjoint constraint, what we mean is disjoint or overlapping. So this is all of them together, we call them disjoint constraint. And I also talked about the completeness constraint, the double line. So, or the single line. So we call that one as completeness constraint, or سميها total participation or partial participation. أما هذا, which is disjoint, is it overlapping or what? Is it disjoint? This is what he means by this one. So here, disjoint constraint, here, completeness constraint, hierarchy and lattice. Let me explain this one. هذا ما شرحته جدا. What do I mean by hierarchy and what do I mean by lattice? A hierarchy simply means like a tree. I can have subclasses and subclass of subclass and so on. We call this hierarchy. Lattice is the one I showed you here. Let me show you again. Now this one, that you see, this is hierarchy. Do you see any subclass which has two parents in here? ولا ما تشوفوا? Direct parents I'm talking. Do you see any subclass with two parents? No. So this is a tree. There is no subclass. So every subclass has only one parent. For example, project has only one direct parent, which is manager. Trade union, they have only one direct parent, which is hourly employee, and so on. What about this? This is lattice. It's not hierarchy. So sometimes the ER diagram can be lattice, some be kind of. Why lattice? Because this guy has more than one parent. He has three parents. So if you have a class in your ER diagram which has more than one parent, then we call this one a lattice. So this is lattice. What you see here is a lattice. Okay? But if you don't have any subclass which has more than one parent and one class, one parent, then we call this one a hierarchy. Is this clear, Shabab? The difference between a hierarchy and a lattice? Okay. So simply, if you don't have a shared subclass, like this guy is shared, isn't it? Shared between who and who? Between engineer, manager, and what? And salary employee. So if you have a shared subclass, you have a lattice. If you don't have any shared subclass, then you have a hierarchy. So is this clear, the difference between a lattice and a hierarchy, Shabab?
Yes.
Okay, very good, excellent. So a shared subclass, I had to talk about that one, inshallah. So that's what I mean by that. And that's it. And the chapter has nothing, and he just repeats the same thing again: top down, specialization, bottom up, generalization, or you can have a combination of both. So some people like specialization way, some people like generalization way, and to do the ER diagram, I mean, the EER, sorry. And some they combine, and sometimes in some they go from down to up, and others they go from top up or bottom and so on. Okay, this is another example here. So this is, what do you see here, Shabab? Do you see a lattice or do you see a hierarchy here?
Hierarchy, I think.
Not hierarchy.
A lattice or a hierarchy?
Lattice.
Lattice.
Why is that?
Okay, student.
Because the student has two parents,
Right.
Yes.
So this is like our graduate student here. We have graduate students. Marat, we treat them as what? As employees, and at the same time we also treat them as what? As students, So like a graduate student assistants, we call them. They are like our graduate students here. They are considered like an employee. At the same time, also they are considered like what? Like a parent. Yeah. So they have a salary as if they are employee. At the same time, they have a GPA and grades and so on, as if they are what? As if they are they are students يعني also. So we call them graduate student assistants. So they have the both attributes يعني. So this is what we, okay, an example of our graduate student is here يعني. Okay, this is just go through it. It's not that important. So now category or union هذه it will take me تقريبا class كامل لحالها. So I'm going to discuss it next class يعني. So let me go quickly over the slides so that you remember what I say, like a revision for you. So we talked about what a superclass is. We talked about specialization and generalization. But don't worry about category. This will be discussed in the next class. Okay, and so on يعني. So تقريبا this is what you said. So there is nothing يعني. تقريبا it is لو ركزتوا على هذه it contains all the information that I said يعني. Yes, sir. You have a question?
Yes. I see the problem, doctor, that maybe you understand the section very well, but then the question comes as true or false from something from the slides. Or
yeah, you had true false just like me, Sahih.
True or false, multiple choice, yes.
Me too.
Based on memorization questions, I mean.
Exactly. That's the problem here with Corona, because well, we have to ask you true false questions and so on يعني. But I really don't like them يعني تقريبا يعني. But they are, what can we do يعني? This time we are forced. But if you see at my previous exams, I don't have true false questions. I don't have multiple choice questions.
I think there is some alternative, doctor.
For the midterm, I'm going to put alternatives definitely يعني. But the point is, I'm going to put also some essay at least يعني in the midterm يعني.
Yeah, I mean alternatives for multiple choice and for true and false questions.
What are
like you said, the SQL will be, if it's an essay, you write the SQL, that will be better. And for the design ER, you design an ER.
We are going to do that one, inshallah. In the midterm, I think we will have some of that. But the problem is that for the university is afraid of copying, you know. So we are taking, we are assuming that some students, they might be able to, because copying will be so easy when you are dealing with essays. فهمت علي? So that's why we are afraid of essays a lot يعني.
With the camera and everything, I think it's pretty hard.
Yeah, you can do your best, but the point is it's very difficult to control really يعني. So that's why a lot of teachers, they are going for multiple choice and so on to false, and you can go only one way. You don't have to go back and go on. All of this is just to minimize, just to minimize. So inshallah, but what we can do is, inshallah, I will not try to ask tricky questions, inshallah. Okay? Yeah. But
do we have a design ER?
To tell you frankly, we are not done yet. Tonight, me and Jawid, we are going to meet and finalize the questions, okay? So I am doing the first part, the first topics, and he's doing the last topic. So I don't know what he will do. Okay? Yeah. Thank you. I think that's it. This is just an example, Shabab. Let me show you this example. How can you draw this? Can you draw this for me? Let's draw it together. So I have employees. Some of them are secretaries, and some of them are engineers, and some of them are technicians. So tell me, how do you do this one? So I will have an employee table, Sahih. And I don't know what I'm
disjoint, I think we use.
Let's see if it's disjoint or it's overlapping here. So what shall I put here according to what you see here? Can I put O or can I put D, Shabab, here?
D.
D, very good, because I don't see two rows from one. See? There are no two rows going. So in this case, definitely it's going to be D. Disjoint. It looks from this one, from this diagram, this looks like a D. These are all the employees that I have. Some of, for example, this guy E1, he is a secretary. E2, he is an engineer. E3, he is a technician. If E3 was also an engineer, I will see another line from here. صحيح? But I don't see, I just see single lines. صحيح? In this case, it is what? It is disjoint. Do you agree with me ولا لا يا شباب?
Yes, I agree.
Yes, yes.
Very good. So disjoint. What about, shall I put here double line or the single line?
Single.
Why?
Because there are some employees that there is no lines between them and the secretary or engineer or technician.
Very good. This guy, صحيح? Look at this
Right.
guy. He doesn't belong to any of the three, صحيح? So because of that, we will keep this one single line. So the disjointed constraint is D, and the completeness constraint is partial, okay? Not total. Because I have some employees like employee E6, he's not a secretary, he's not an engineer, and he's not a technician. So I will make it a single line. Is this clear, Shabab? Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Now, I told you there are two reasons why we have to create a subclass from a superclass. There are two reasons why we have to create a subclass from a superclass. And I showed you one reason. What was that one reason, Hisham? Can you tell me?
To avoid null values.
Exactly. معناته is there is an extra attribute in the subclass. Sorry, again. I have an attribute that only belongs to a subclass. It doesn't belong to everybody. So that will force me to create a subclass. Is this clear? This is the first reason. Is that clear, Shabab?
Yes, it's clear.
Very good. Now, I have another reason why I have to separate also a class, a subclass from a superclass, even if I don't have an extra attribute. Maybe I have a relationship which is only done to some employees. For example, I can take you here, for example. Maybe I have here, I can create another one here. Let's say it's also disjoint, but these are medical doctors. Medical doctors. Then the medical doctors, they don't have their own attributes. Their attributes are the common attributes only. But we like to make a relationship between the medical doctors and maybe we have something called, I don't know, clinic ولا حاجة يعني. So this attribute, this entity here is only with the doctors. It has nothing to do with engineers, has nothing to do with technicians. So there is an extra relationship which only belongs to some parts of only a part of the employees. So even though I don't have an attribute هنا زيادة بالنسبة the medical doctors, let me call them MDs, medical doctors. I don't have any attribute for them, صحيح? But the medical doctors have a relationship with their hospital, مثلا here, and we have hospital information. So this is a big table and it contains a lot of information. So there is a relationship here. We don't want to put this relationship هنا. ما نبغى نحطها هنا. Why? Because this relationship is only with what? With medical doctors فقط. So this is the second reason sometimes people like to make what? A subclass. So two reasons. I will create a subclass for two reasons. One reason is the subclass has it has an extra attribute which only belongs to the subclass. This is reason number one. Reason number two, maybe the subclass has a relationship with another entity. So this relationship only belongs to what? To a particular group of employees فقط يعني. But they don't have an extra column, صحيح, but they have a specific relationship with another employee, with another, entity, so we can also separate them. So these are the two reasons why you have to create a subclass. Otherwise, don't create a subclass, no need for it. Any question here?
Doctor,
Yes.
does the subclass inherit the relationship if there's a relationship with the employee, just employee?
Very good. For example, if there's going to be like one to many, لو كانت كده, isn't it? then the hospital ID will become here. So I will have the medical doctors and his hospital here. So I will have, for example, a new SSN and then the hospital ID. So this doctor, which is 111, he works for hospital number 1 مثلا. This guy works for hospital number 2 مثلا. صحيح? If it is one to many. If this was one hospital, many doctors. معي ولا ايه؟
No, I'm talking about if there's a relationship with the employee. Does the subclass have this relationship?
Oh, yeah, definitely. For example, if I have a relationship here, for example, of the employee with a department معينة,
Yes.
isn't it? Then definitely يعني, it belongs to all the employees. That's what it means. يعني.
Okay, yes.
Okay, very good question. Excellent. Okay, I think I talked about everything تقريبا. I think what I want to discuss, I discuss it. Okay. I discussed it around. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. This is it's okay, it doesn't really matter, this one. Now, when you divide, I'll explain this screen. معلش, what do I mean by here? عشان لما تقراها عشان ما تتحير. Let's say when I'm going to divide a superclass into subclasses, I can base my division on 3 things. First of all, I can do it predicate-defined division, or user-defined division, or attribute-defined specialization. يعني. تقريبا, what do I mean by predicate division? For example, how did I divide this one, شباب, into 3? How did I divide this one into 3? On what reason, شباب? On the job type, صحيح? ولا ايش رايكم؟ So this was based on the job type attribute. معي ولا ايه؟ Are you with me? So those who are secretary, yes. I'll put them here. Those who are what? Those who are technician, I will put them here, and those who are engineer, I will put them here. So the reason I put you here is depends on your job type. So sometimes the division happens because of the job type. Sometimes we have a user defined. So the user somehow he has some kind of definition. So based on that definition, but not on the job type. Maybe it can be on something else. He can also divide them. So always the division doesn't really happen because of what? Of a particular attribute. Sometimes it can be just the user wants to divide it into 3 for whatever reason he wants. So we call this one user defined. So it's not clear, but it's called user defined. Or it can be in some kind of what? Function. For example, I will look at the birthday so function of his birthday, his address, and his job type. I'll take these 3, then based on these 3, I will divide you into different groups. يعني. So dividing a super type into a subtype can happen in 3 different ways. Either it can happen because based on a particular attribute value, like this one, for example, or it can be in some kind of a function that you define it. We call this one predicate, or it's called predicate way, and so you have a predicate or it's something, so call it a function. يعني. Or the user, he can come with anything and he can divide them. يعني. So it can also happen. يعني. Okay, so these are the 3 ways to divide what? To divide a superclass into subclasses. And I really don't want you to remember this one. It's not an important information. Okay, it's not important information on the slide هذيك, but حبيت عشان أشرح لكم إياها just in case تقراها and you don't know what it means. يعني. So simply, if I go back to there to explain it for you, what is it? Did I pass it? Let me just go through that slide again, just to make sure that you ما تحيركش يعني. So predicate defined معناته ايش? When you divide them into 3 groups, it was based on a value, on a function. This is what it means. يعني. User defined, it can be anything that is a user defined. يعني. And attribute defined معناته you chose a particular attribute which has 3 distinct values. So if the value is engineer, you'll put them in all the engineers هنا, all the secretaries هنا, and so on their job type. يعني. So this kind of specialization based on job type is what it means. And so we call this one attribute defined. So we have attribute defined, we have predicate defined, and we have a user defined attribute. Okay, Shabab? Okay, so I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to give you a lot of information about the midterm, inshallah, after we finalize it. So hopefully by tonight, you will have a complete information about the midterm, inshallah. Okay. Let me just do two things, Malish. Okay, let me quickly, because I keep forgetting this. First of all, let me stop recording.